Hello everyone and welcome to the Autistic Pride online celebration. Really exciting to be part of this from Ireland. I am Joan MacDonald from the Autistic Paddies, and we have a selection of videos that we have pre-recorded to give a flavour of various autistic initiatives happening in Ireland to celebrate this Pride Day. My camera is held up by all the weight of our dreams on living radicalised autism and loud hands. So that should inspire us all, and certainly inspire me. That's what's holding my camera up today, so that's keeping me in place. Because right now, where normally we would be at an Autistic Pride picnic, there's just me in my garden, but we are having an event on Saturday with a picnic. I'm going to move out of the sun so you can see me. A picnic, a socially distanced picnic in Ennis and Clare. And there are others happening around the country as well. I know there's some happening in Galway and possibly one in Dublin, and I haven't got up with the rest of them because I've been too busy putting together all our videos for Saturday, which is going to be a really exciting day because it's got people from all over certainly the English-speaking world. We have snuck in a friend of ours from France as well into our presentations, into our videos for today. Happy Pride Day. Today is Thursday, and it's kind of exciting that the day is getting so much attention. Why have a Pride Day? I've got some notes here from the part I wrote for our Autistic Paddies group on Facebook. Autistic Paddies is an Irish social chat. Well, Autistic Paddies has a public page on Facebook, just so you can hear a little bit about autistic adults' perspectives. But the main thing we are is a social chat group for autistic adults who actually have meetups when we're not in the middle of pandemics. And we have been meeting all over the country now for the last 3 years. We have 350 members. Hugely supportive group online for each other, but also various members of the group do various other things as well in the autism world, and some of them are going to tell you a little bit about what they do in the videos today. So we're a sort of a loose conglomerate of people on Facebook. We do hope to become a charity eventually and to be able to arrange more meetups around the country. Back to Pride. Why do we need Pride? Isn't April all about autism awareness and understanding? Yes, it is, but autistic people are right at the back of the queue when it comes to things happening in April. April, I suppose, was taken over by big conglomerates like Autism Speaks, trying to cure autism and fix autism, and it has become big business, and it's associated with blue puzzle pieces, when in fact people only think we're puzzling because they don't know us. So today is a day of rainbow neurodiversity, and I'm not very artistic, but I'm just wearing my most colourful rainbowy jumper to be as neurodiverse proud as I can possibly be today. So we need a day for ourselves that isn't taken over by the groups that, even the nice groups that support us. This is our day to speak out for ourselves. And that's what June the 18th is about. And that's what I hope our presentations will be. Why do I have autistic pride? I grew up in Catholic Ireland, and for me, pride was a deadly sin. So I never quite got the idea of pride, although I knew black pride and gay pride were kind of a fun thing. I was born in between the two of those things happening. And so I realised, what is pride? It isn't just about being, hey, we're great, and waving and scarves and flags and all sorts. Pride is about your right to exist, and your right to exist on an equal footing with everybody else. And right now, for autistic people, that isn't happening. We should have the same right to exist as everybody else. And people say, but sure you do, you're here. But actually, the way our neurology operates in the world, the way we think, the way we relate sensorially, the way we relate socially, the way we learn things, the way we need to access our medical care, the houses we need to live in, the transport we need to take. The world is not designed around our needs. So that's why we need pride, to say we are here, we count, and our needs need to be met. So for me, pride is about having the same right to exist in the world as everybody else. Pride is about having access to therapists to figure out what is your unique communication and how to support you to be understood and to understand each other as an autistic person. A lot of autistic kids I know get speech therapy, but they don't necessarily get support in assistive augmentative communication. The UN had a year for AAC 2 years ago, and I don't really know what came out of that. One of the most famous autistic people sadly passed away this year, Mel Baggs, and her video In My Language is a classic. Please watch it if you haven't. You'll find it on YouTube, In My Language by Silent Meow. And she, I suppose, showed that when you are using alternative communication, it does not mean you're stupid. It does not mean you're not relating to your environment. In fact, she had the most extraordinary close relationship with all the most simple things in her environment. Once when I showed that at a class, one of the people watching said, "Gosh, so many other people pay money to go to yoga retreats and Zen places. And here is Amanda Baggs living that life, that she is so in the moment with her environment that not many other people can do." So that was a positive way of seeing autism, that was taking pride in autism, that isn't often seen. Pride is about being entitled to expect public understanding about your sensory needs, so that every day is not a horrific assault on the senses. Most autistic people struggle to get through certain parts of every day unless you can make the environment exactly as you want it. Many members of the Autistic Paddies, and certainly many people in the world right now, are living in close confines with other people, where people's needs are very, very different, and it's really hard to accommodate everybody's needs. And that's because living spaces haven't been designed with autistic people in mind. So our sensory needs for what we see, hear, touch, feel, the balance around us, the electricity signals around us, all those things, they aren't being met. And why aren't they being met? Because people don't understand them. And even the trained professionals who support autistic children or support autistic adults who are not living independently don't understand sensory needs. Well, that's a specialism, that's not the thing I do. If it's the core of our being, why are people not paying attention? Why are people not supporting us to understand how our own individual sensory system works and to understand how we can adapt and how our environment can adapt to make us exist? It isn't happening. Autistic pride is about wanting that and expecting that to happen as human beings in this world who should be able to enjoy life the same as everybody else should. Pride, and this is kind of the sad bit, it's about realising that loving, caring relationships can twist and bend. When you are spending so much time with an autistic person that society doesn't value. The health, the social, the educational services in most countries do not support autistic people. So what happens? Generally, their family members end up supporting them, and the family members have to stop sometimes doing the stuff they love doing because they love the autistic person and want to support them. That isn't enough. Back when we didn't live in nuclear families, back when a wide community looked after everybody's needs, then everybody was responsible for supporting everybody. Now when people are in small little apartments and parents are with small kids and they don't understand each other and they've got small little places to live in, that's a horror. And then you get all those horrible stories online. Not always a horror, but it's very crowded and people's needs aren't met. And so you get parents being stressed online, writing about how awful their children are. And then you get the whole autism industry trying to cure them. Instead of having a society where people who are autistic are understood and where everybody feels the need to support them, and where we can just get on the same as everybody else, except for differently because the way we take things in is different. Pride is about realising that autistic people are so much more than the insults we receive daily. We're cold, we have no empathy, we're high functioning, we're low functioning, we're violent, we're psychotic. These words have seeped into people's beliefs about who and how autistic people are. So if you declare to somebody that you're autistic, they get a very strange picture in their mind and they treat you differently. Pride is when a school that uses electric shocks as part of standard training for autistic people is not the highlight of a conference about a multi-million-dollar autism behavioural industry. That just happened in 2019. The Judge Rottenberg Centre was the keynote at a big ABA conference in the States, I think the biggest ABA conference in the States. The Judge Rottenberg Centre that in its modus operandi tortures autistic people into compliance. Pride is when autistic people in mental health facilities don't feel tortured there and can return to life in better health than they went in. So many members of the Autistic Paddies have been through the mental health system, and it has made things worse, not better. It has eroded the very fragile self-confidence they had in the first place. It has stopped them from asking or even knowing to ask about what they want or what they need in life. They are so othered. It's my belief, and this is a personal belief, not Autistic Paddies policy, that an awful lot of people in mental health services in Ireland are autistic or at the very least neurodiverse, and therefore the way that they are taking in the world is causing extra stress. If we who can speak out about that might be able to explain to people a little bit more about autism, then people who've lost their voice might just begin to find it again. Pride is when people can say they're autistic and not be disdained or othered or blamed for every social mishap for it, as happens. Oh, they're autistic. What would you expect? And that's what we tend to get here because we're autistic. Pride is when autistic people have the same chance as everybody else not to be shot by the police, not to be murdered by family members, not to suffer mental health issues without any support, not to be highly skilled but unemployed, not to be lost to suicide at a rate 10 times higher than everybody else, not to simply be encouraged to attend venues and conferences where we're spoken about so that our voice is still not heard and people are trained the wrong way. Pride is when there is communities of understanding and support so that family carers can have a shower, coffee with a friend, knowing that their autistic dependent will be happy and secure in that time, that autistic people can go outside their doors and know that they don't have to be scared by people approaching them, by loud sounds, by strange things happening that are unexpected. And that autistic people don't have to be sad when other people in our lives have to give up their lives and their expectations to support us. Why are our needs not met by our communities? Why are they only met by well-meaning adults in our lives if needs be, or not met at all, which leads to all the other problems? We know 2% of the population is on the autism spectrum, and that's conservative. Adults can't get a diagnosis, women can't get a diagnosis, minority groups can't get a diagnosis, poor people can't get a diagnosis, and then people wonder why others might self-identify. That's a lot of people in society dismiss. That's why in Autistic Paddies we have a policy that if you say that you are autistic, you are welcome to come to our social chat group. And in that group, a lot of people find out whether they probably are or they probably aren't. Some go for a diagnosis, some don't, but it makes sense to them in their lives. So for all those reasons, we need an Autistic Pride Day. Our needs have as much a right as everybody else's to be considered in this small planet. That said, in no particular order, I'm going to give you a little introduction to what's coming up. We have Jodie O'Neill. Jodie wrote an entire play, What I Don't Know About Autism, and but for COVID-19, I think it would be performed in a lot more places. Most of the cast was autistic, Jodie's autistic, and the play, with lots of singing, dancing and being very autism friendly, went down a treat in Ireland. And so we've one of the songs from that, A Brief History of Autism, which I hope you'll enjoy. We have Stephen from Aspire Productions, and Aspire Productions is a company that first of all trains in and then employs autistic people to make videos, and Steve explains a bit about how that is, and they work commercially. Frank Ludwig, I hope, doesn't need an introduction. He has a website online about, where else would a website be, about his writing, which is generally about autism, and he here is going to recite some of his poems for us. It's his first time doing anything online. He's a man of the live performance, so we are very honoured to have him record a video for us. We have Bastien from Nantes in France. Bastien and his friends have meetups online with us on Zoom every now and again where we speak Franglais or Frenchlish because his group are trying to set up their own space in France in a country where autistic people are treated really badly, where there certainly wouldn't be autistic pride. There's just about autistic existence. And so for Bastien and for the countries that are like Bastien's, today being broadcast all over the world is really exciting because they can see how autistic people can speak out and can just get on with things when we're given our own chance. We have Mel, who came to our lovely Autistic Pride picnic last year, and I've written down Mel, she's Melissa, I have it in shorthand. Melissa came to her very first Autistic Paddies meetup, and that was our picnic last year with 50 people and many of them performing. And she brought along a special interest board. And of course, as we know, we relate best via our interests. So people were able to stick multicoloured post-its on the board and to say what they were interested in, and that was a way for people to meet each other. Irish weather stopped us from moving around too much, but it was a really good idea that we will follow up on again. And it was only afterwards I found out that Mel, it was her first meetup and she was quite terrified doing this, but she wanted to do it to break the ice and because she thought it would be a good thing to do. And you'll hear her little video talking about that. Peter sings a song. We missed Eurovision this year, so instead in the Autistic Paddies we had Autovision. Some people performed covers and others wrote their own songs, and Peter wrote his songs about the coronavirus isolation blues, so you may enjoy that. We then have Stuart, and this piece has been in an art exhibition last year. Stuart Nielsen is an Irish artist and statistician, and he's combined his two talents to make, it's quite a long video. I'm going to try and show all of it, unless we get more entries before Saturday. Stuart's video is about owning autism, creating autism. What is it? Where does it come from? It's a lovely piece. Jacob then recites one of his poems about masking, and masking in many respects. Masking as an autistic person, masking in terms of gender, which of course is an issue for many of us as well. Kathy talks about the world's first, we think, neurodiverse society in her university that she helped to set up. Danny from Galway speaks about she is bravely going where autistics fear to go. She is working with support services to try and provide autism-specific support. So she's working with the mental health service in Galway to make things better for autistic people. And she talks a little bit about that. Paula is a poet and a storyteller and an artist, and she's reading some of her poems for us, and so is her son giving a little song. And Deirdre is another artist. So in no particular order, because it depends on how I get these uploaded before Saturday, I hope you'll enjoy a little bit of a taste of Irish autism, and I hope you'll really enjoy celebrating Autistic Pride Day, and we may come to you live from Ennis, depending on our Zoom signal. Happy Pride Day!
Hello, my name is Frank L. Ludwig, and for Autistic Pride I would like to read some of the poems from my collection Lines from the Spectrum. However, I would like to open by introducing you to an interdisciplinary theory which could revolutionize the fields of anthropology and autism research by interpreting the known fact in a much simpler way and answering questions that mainstream theories can't answer. To keep it short, I'll just read the abstract. Homo sapiens were quite unremarkable until they met the highly sophisticated Neanderthals. Assimilating the Neanderthal led to the Upper Paleolithic revolution, since it caused a drastic increase in Homo sapiens' brain size and consequently brought about their rapid evolution by combining the creativity, resourcefulness, and inquisitive spirit of Neanderthals, who were of an individual nature, with the ambition and networking skills of Homo sapiens, who were of a social nature. Since the Neanderthal assimilation, most Homo sapiens have retained their predominantly social nature and therefore tend to ostracize those of a predominantly individual nature who, beginning in the 1940s, are being pathologized with the label of autism. However, human progress is driven by autistic individuals because of their original thinking, lack of conformity, immunity to group dynamics and peer pressure, skepticism of authority, and discontentment with the status quo. A person qualifies for an autism diagnosis when they, due to the nature of their Neanderthal DNA and the resulting traits, exceed the level of individuality tolerated by society. The autistic Neanderthal theory is the only unifying theory of autism, since it is able to explain every facet as well as the heterogeneity of autism. If you're interested, you can find all my articles and poems on autism, including the theory in full, at autismappreciation.com. Now for the poems. The first one was written almost 20 years ago, long before I knew I was autistic, but it probably would have been sufficient for a diagnosis. Ziphius Silvanus. He was a swordfish who lived in the wood. He couldn't sing or hunt mice, or do anything that the others could, but with his long bill he could slice the others' portions. Each evening they stood around him and shared, which was nice. And oft he would talk of this magical place where he, just like all others, could be, and where he'd be moving with ease and with grace in his element, cheerful and free. The others would sneer, or they'd tell him to face the stern reality. And oft he would stand on the cliffs at the shore, and he'd watch the wide ocean and pause, but his sylvan friends would know the score and hold him back with their claws. Don't jump, there's so much worth living for. But they'd never reveal what it was. Progress. People want to be accepted by their peers and brood about how the others may perceive them. Fitting in, they can't stand out. No one ever makes a difference who has no original thought. Progress isn't brought by people who are thinking as they're taught. No one ever makes a difference who adopts the social norm. Progress isn't brought by people who uncritically conform. No one ever makes a difference who obeys on bended knee. Progress isn't brought by people who revere authority. No one ever makes a difference who is going with the flow. Progress isn't brought by people who uphold the status quo. This one is called the manual. The curious young man was standing at nature's workbench, made of pine, as she described her many duties and showed him an assembly line. This is where I, without cessation, produce the standard human brain, which I deliver with a body and a short manual to explain. But 1 in 10 must be created by hand, and that's when I explore new ways and try out new connections that I have never tried before. These function on a different level, the brains with individual sides, producing scientists and artists and those who fight for human rights. Is there a manual for these then? The man inquired about a craft. A manual? Nature snorted roughly, and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. Thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Paula and I'm going to share 2 poems with you. This is called Once in a Meadow. Once in a meadow of tall spindly grasses that swayed and sang, where a low-flying breeze moved and danced, I lay stretched out, content. Just me and the grasses, the buttercups and the daisies, and the sky. There was nowhere to be, nothing to do. I let my dreams grow and float away like the clouds. I could hear and feel the wild summer flowers reach upwards towards the sun. I felt safe. I felt myself. When older, expectation attempted to keep me in, seated and still. Without movement, a heavy seed took root. Tendrils creeping, wrapping themselves around my inside like bindweed. I was filled with worry, which became fertilizer for the growing, whispering weed within me. It was relentless, a creeper, gaining strength from sharp and laughing tongues and pointing fingers, constricting, keeping all growth just out of reach, all love, all learning, all wonder just out of reach. Until by chance I found a tiny cluster of snowdrops, alive and living. Their silent white bells suggested a promise of better days, and I felt for the first time the inner bindweed weaken, if just a little, and thought of hope as a spring flower.
Hey everybody, my name is Jake or Jacob. I'm a writer. I normally write short stories and scripts and stuff like that. But today I'm going to do a poem for you guys and girls and everybody else, and it is called Mask. I really, really hope you enjoy it. There's a secret that I'm too scared to tell. Maybe my heart beats for boys as well. Or maybe I hate how the mirror fails to show a female. Or maybe I'm autistic and you missed it. But that's my fault. You see, there's a mask tasked to halt questions of any class, and this mask will help me breeze past any mass and never be asked, who's the real person here? A mask crafted of gold and fear, because the news has made it abundantly clear. The threats that I'd get if I loved a Ruth and a Roy, if I didn't feel like myself as a boy, or if flapping my hands gave me joy. The different eyes that I'd earn if you saw the light burn to the tune of Jim Carrey going, "Smokin'!" And even without all of that, I'm still the freak. I'm still the token. So instead of being laid to waste, I took my face and I lost it. And now I lie with the other monsters in the closet. But there's less of a fear factor when you're faced with an actor. There's less pity and rage when the world is a stage, and my script, it's perfectly lipped, without a line clipped or a word tripped. And anyway, you connected with the mask men at the door. Without it, would you want to be my friend anymore? Like maybe I'm weird or wrong or a bore, and there are people who've seen beneath that adore, but then there's people that think I need to be cured. because this is just a silly teenage dream, or it's a phase going on longer than it seems, or it's the vaccines. But why can't it just be me? What you don't see is my mask of gold has made me blue, because it is exhausting pretending to be you. I collapse in my bed every night because I am through, scared to wake up, because then I will start this all anew. And I want to show you who I am. I really do. So I'm waiting for the day that my nature isn't chit-chatter, where I'm not at the risk of being battered, or your image of me is not going to shatter. This secret that I'm too scared to tell, it's yours. On the day it doesn't matter. Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
This is Autistic COVID Love Song. When Corona came to call, didn't bother me at all. I'm with the autistic nation, I'm used to isolation. Then you came into my view, I knew what I had to do. I wanna isolate with you, make a meal for two. I'll even share my spoon with you. That's what I wanna do. Now the virus is fading out, and I'm having a bit of a doubt. You could still come to stay, but I'm kinda set on my way. I wanna isolate with you, but I've changed my point of view. Only for a day or two, I don't wanna get bored with you.
Hi everybody, happy Autistic Pride Day. So Joan asked me just to say a few quick words about my contribution to the Autistic Pride picnic that we Autistic Paddies had in Phoenix Park last year. It's hard to believe it's already been a year, but that picnic actually happened to be my first ever Autistic Paddies meetup. I'd only joined the group a few months beforehand and I didn't really know anybody in the group prior to the event. I mean, I might have known one or two people vaguely, but I was essentially that day walking into a group of strangers. And when you're as introverted as I am, that can be an intimidating prospect to say the least. So I was nevertheless adamant that I was definitely going to go to the event, as I never really knew any other autistic people growing up. And I was really curious to meet like-minded people and, yeah, I suppose find my tribe. So to help me with this anxiety that I was sort of having before the event, and I suppose initiating a conversation with people I didn't really know, I also had this vision. It was one I've always had, where if I was ever in a group or I suppose in a room full of other autistic people, I've always wanted to ask every person in the room their special interest and maybe write it on a post-it, and we could like stick it up on a wall and make a kind of collage type thing. And that's exactly what I did. I brought a piece of cardboard with me to the picnic, and also some post-its, some Sharpies, and most people put down their special interest on it, and we kind of had this lovely board. It was, I think, a pretty nice icebreaker for people who, perhaps like myself, aren't great at starting conversations. And it was great to see that so many people had stuff in common, but also that these interests were incredibly diverse and in some ways couldn't be more different. I was really kind of bowled over by it, and I actually genuinely welled up with pride at how passionate we are as a group of people. And I really do think special interests are like such an incredible signifier of autistic pride, as we all have topics that we're incredibly passionate and that we really care about. And when you see all of that put together in front of you, it really shows what an incredible group of people we are, if I may say so myself, and that we really should be celebrating autism as a positive identity, and rather than, I suppose, over-fixating on the drawbacks. So I was, really bowled over by that. And then after our group of incredible performers had done their bits, so we had an incredible array of very, very talented people, members of the group, who did various things from reciting poetry to dances. I think there was someone with a hula hoop there at one point. There was even someone with a snake. It was incredible. But after all that was finished, I had to stand up in front of the group and talk about the board, what I think it represents, and what it says about us as a group of people. And that was terrifying, to say the least. I have had this lifelong fear of public speaking. I'm far more comfortable writing than speaking. I've just always had this niggling fear of being laughed at. However, I told myself that that's not going to happen here. I mean, you're with your people. You're safe. You're fine. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Get that ridiculous notion out of your head. And if there's any time to be coming out of your shell, it's now. You don't need to mask. You're with your people. So that's exactly what I did, and that's not to say it wasn't absolutely terrifying. Of course it was. The whole prospect of standing up in front of a group of people and having to speak, I mean, even recording this video, as you can probably tell, all sense of coherency just flies out the window, because I know that someone's going to be listening to this, and I am acutely aware of that all the time. Nevertheless, I got through it. I'm so glad I did it. I couldn't imagine a more perfect initiation into the group, and Autistic Paddies has honestly been, ever since, the most incredible platform for me to kind of explore my autistic identity and meet like-minded people. I've met some lifelong friends through the group, and just a never-ending fountain of support. Honestly, I think Autistic Paddies as a group is autistic pride embodied, and I'm so grateful that it gave me the platform to find my tribe. So happy Autistic Pride Day, everybody, and I hope you all have a great day.
Hello, my name is James, and I'm gonna sing you a song. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to be better far than you are, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know it'll only be true to this glorious quest that my heart will lay peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man, scorched and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to fight the unbeatable foe, to reach the unreachable star.
Hi, this is Paula with a poem called Careful Encouragement. With careful encouragement, consistency and love, I can surmount all obstacles. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danny Burke. I am autistic, as well as other neurodivergent differences that many are not diagnosed. I'm also diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, although I prefer to call it sensory processing differences, I guess, because there's lots of positives that come along with sensory processing differences. It's not all negative stuff. So I was not diagnosed too long ago, 3-ish around years. I have terrible perception of time, so something around that. My life has drastically changed since finding my tribe and connecting with the autistic community. Prior to this, I was in significant distress most of the time, and I was chronically trying to kill myself and living in hospitals. But since learning I'm autistic and connecting with the community, my life has changed so much for the better. I still have, a lot of difficulties every day, like many autistic people do. But at least now I understand myself better. I understand my limitations. I am able to use things that are actually going to be helpful for me, and not just the standard non-autistic coping skills that often are not very beneficial for autistic people. So it's really helped me understand myself better, and other people in the world. So I'm so grateful. Had I not been diagnosed, I don't think I'd still be alive at the moment. So not long after I was diagnosed, I reached out to an autistic friend as well as other people, but one friend put me in touch with Autistic Paddies, the secret Facebook group. So through that I met just the most amazing group of autistic adults around Ireland. Like, they're just fantastic. Supporting each other and connecting and just having a laugh and sharing each other's interests, and it's really a space where people can be themselves. So through Autistic Paddies as well, a bunch of us that are in that group that live in Galway, and not even just Galway but also surrounding counties, we set up our own meetup that we were meeting once a month, in a cafe, as well as a monthly board game meetup as well. So we have people coming from different counties to our meetups. Obviously at the moment with COVID we can't meet indoors in person, and any meetups have been ceased for quite some time. But in the last couple of weeks we've now been allowed to meet up in small groups of 6 outdoors with social distancing guidelines taken into account. So we have been meeting in a park down the road from me here by the sea for last Saturday and 2 Saturdays before that, so that's been really nice to see my friends again and just not be stuck at home. So it's really nice to kind of get to meet people again and kind of start things up again in some sense. So we have an amazing group of people here in Galway too. I've made really good friends through Autistic Paddies in the Galway group. I'm really grateful for what we have here and our lovely little group of people. So that's our little Galway Autistic Adult meetup. We're hoping to be able to go back into the cafes when things are safe to do so again, but I think we'll also continue our weekend meetup outdoors as well. Maybe not during the winter when we get terrible weather. The weather's always bad here in Galway. It's always raining. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm a little bit sad we can't have a proper Autistic Pride in-person picnic this year, but next year. So I am also involved in a mental health charity called Cusan. I'm the company secretary, and I connected with that group through another autistic friend not long after I was diagnosed, who I met in Autistic Paddies as well, and she came with me to the Cusan group, which she'd been attending herself for some time, and I've met an amazing community of people there also. While Cusan are not an autistic specific charity, many of our committee and members are also autistic as well as experiencing mental health difficulties. As autistic people are aware, many of us do have often significant mental health difficulties due to the world not understanding us or accommodating us and not getting the appropriate supports. So Cusan have been amazing, and they've adapted approaches and the environment. For example, when I first started going there, I found the lights too bright in the room where people get peer support and where we provide peer support. So right away Cusan went out and bought lamps to use instead for dimmer lighting, to make the environment easier for people and more relaxing, and they've been so open to learning about autism and autistic people's experiences and how they can adapt their support to provide it to our members in the most appropriate way. So I've been very fortunate to meet the amazing mental health community here locally as well. I'm just blown away by things that autistic people are doing around the country and worldwide of course too, but I have to talk about here in Ireland. So people are doing amazing stuff themselves, and unfortunately and yes, autistic people need to organise their own things, but sometimes people just don't have the spoons. Many people are aware of the spoons theory, but here in Ireland there's little to no supports for autistic adults, so it's amazing that autistic people are taking it upon themselves to create resources and meetups and connect with people. So it's just amazing. Autistic people they're just making huge strides and doing so much, and unfortunately that doesn't get recognised or validated very often. So I'm very proud to be autistic. I was never proud of myself before this, before my diagnosis, and learning that I am autistic has helped me, feel okay in myself and actually be proud of who I am and where I am and my differences. So I think it's really important we all can support each other and be accepting to autistic people. The world is just too hard, and autistic people need to take back this narrative and keep spreading more positive messages, and hopefully eventually the rest of the world will catch on. I don't know, fingers crossed, but all we can do is try. This is our day, so we're also having a little picnic here in Salt Hill today for Autistic Pride. I know it was Thursday, but we're celebrating it today on Saturday. So that should be nice. We're having a small picnic with 6 people outdoors. So it's great, but I also look forward to when we can have slightly larger picnics like we did last year for Autistic Paddies. So positive things in the future. Take care, everybody. Happy Pride. Happy Autistic Pride.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Bastien, j'ai fait des études d'informatique et je vis à Nantes dans l'ouest de la France. J'ai découvert le groupe Autistic Paddies il y a maintenant 2 ans lors d'un voyage en Irlande. J'ai vraiment aimé leur concept de créer un groupe qui permette aux personnes autistes de sortir de chez elles, de partager des activités et d'échanger sur leurs difficultés. J'ai pensé que cela était un bon moyen pour leur permettre de s'exprimer, de dire ce qu'elles ont à dire et de se rendre compte qu'elles ne sont pas seules à faire face à leurs difficultés. J'ai tellement aimé le concept qu'aujourd'hui je suis en train de créer un groupe similaire à Nantes. Nous avons une dizaine de personnes autistes et nous organisons des activités assez régulièrement. Cependant, créer un tel groupe en France semble plus difficile qu'en Irlande. Ici, l'autisme est encore vu essentiellement sous un modèle médical. Nous parlons encore de maladies ou de troubles. Jamais nous ne considérons l'autisme sous l'aspect de l'accessibilité. Même si de plus en plus de personnes autistes sont scolarisées en France, rien n'a été prévu pour les adultes. Beaucoup d'adultes sont diagnostiqués tardivement, voire ne sont pas diagnostiqués. Et nous commençons à peine à parler de l'accès à l'emploi. Avoir le soutien d'Autistic Paddies pour créer un groupe de personnes autistes à Nantes me semble vraiment important. Il nous montre la voie, il nous montre ce que nous devons faire pour créer un tel groupe, comment nous devons nous organiser, ce que nous devons faire pour que les personnes autistes s'impliquent et trouvent ce qu'elles viennent chercher. Je pense également que ce partenariat permet de montrer aux personnes autistes ici en France comment l'autisme est vu à l'étranger, ce qui pourrait être possible pour elles de faire et de leur montrer la vie à laquelle elles pourraient aspirer.
It's a group of people who think differently.
The goal and aim of this society is to bring together people who would consider themselves to be a bit different from the ordinary. We want them to be able to relax and show their true colours, and we want to bring out their differences because we believe that strength lies in differences.
Openness, honesty, intriguing, interesting, thought-provoking. Warm.
I was talking to Kat Hughes, who was the autism friendly coordinator at the time, and she mentioned that it would be nice if there was a student voice along with it. It kind of stuck with me, and a couple of years passed and I was like, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and I want it to happen. So if not me, then who? And if not now, then when?
On Societies Day, I went around and had a look at all the different societies. This one seemed interesting. I've long thought that my mind doesn't work the same way as other people's minds.
College is probably like when you're, at least in my case, it could be a harrowing experience. You do need some sort of safe space, a place where you can just be yourself, because you get the feeling you kind of just have to hide yourself in a way.
I think this society has had a very positive impact on my college life. I never really had a time when I felt terribly lonely throughout the year, because there was always a group there that I could participate in and that would be able to, I could have a conversation with at any time.
It's a safe space where you can just have like-minded people, where you can join and you can feel safer than any other part of the college.
I'm very ambitious, so as a result the society is very ambitious. I'd like a campaign week in April 2021 with information for students, the general population to even come into DCU to hear speakers talk about the different types of neurodivergency, and not only the supports and the symptoms, but things that people wouldn't expect, like the traits as opposed to the symptoms. Number 2, I want to produce a book, an anthology of works by neurodivergent people, including illustrations and stories and even like non-fiction pieces. Number 3, I want other colleges to have neurodivergent societies.
If you feel any way different, like you're just different from other people and how you react to the world, I feel like you could find something in us.
You can take part as little or as often as you want, and we won't put any pressure on you to show up. I find that it's very stimulating to be in the company of people who think outside the box.
It's orientation week in DCU, and over 100 clubs and societies have set out their stall, including Europe's first neurodivergent society with founding member Kathy at the helm. Today, Society members meet DCU President Brian McCrath to discuss how the college can support neurodivergent students.
But I think there's still this dissonance between where we think we are, where we need to be, and how we get there.
I think here at DCU we're setting a brilliant example, one I hope which many universities follow. This is history in the making.
Scene 17, a brief history of autism. Loud music, singing and dancing coming up.
This is the history of autism.
And it's been around since we don't know when. Don't know when. Don't know when. Looking back, we like to say, who was autistic in their day? But given the lack of diagnostic procedure, retro diagnosis is purely conjecture. What are we going to do it anyway? Famous people, possibly autistic, possibly autistic, possibly autistic. Do-do-do-do, how-do-do-do.
Sir Isaac Newton,
Albert Einstein,
Nikola Tesla, ahead of his time.
Michelangelo,
Emily Dickinson,
Hans Christian Andersen and Charles Darwin.
the biologist behind So let's fast forward to the 1940s, a great time for those with disabilities locked them up in an institution, or even worse, a eugenic solution. Autism was known as childhood schizophrenia, a condition you outgrow. And that would be the end here.
Enter stage right, Dr. Leo Kanner, having left Germany for the Star Spangled Banner.
in 1943, he published his paper
On 11 points of the autistic behavior,
He borrowed the term from another physician,
but he was the first to call it a condition.
but that's not all that Leo did.
He said the kids' challenges, emotional and others, were all because of their refrigerator mothers.
We're all because of their refrigerator mothers.
Were all because of their refrigerator mothers.
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic Ocean,
Amidst the World War II commotion,
What does it mean to be autistic, or to be labelled autistic or with autism by other people? Who creates the meaning of autism, or the identities that autistic people inhabit? Who owns autism? One of the main themes in the history of autism is autism as a medical diagnosis, such as the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM. From the first edition in 1952, the definition of autism has flowed in continuous change since it was first used within psychiatry in the early 20th century, and adopted for a pattern of behaviours described as a childhood schizophrenic reaction. Early terms like psychotic, delusions, retardation, and paranoia fell out of favour as scientific observation and experience flowed towards the definition that we have now. We can trace out the paths of the most frequent terms used to define the diagnosis of autism, which traces out a history of autism as a medical diagnosis and an image of the individual people who have met the diagnostic criteria at different times over the past 70 years, simply because of when and where they lived. The latest diagnostic criteria, the DSM-5 in 2013, defines autism as a social, communication and language disorder, and for the first time defines autism as a spectrum of traits of varying severity affected by context, particularly social demands. So these new terms, spectrum, social, intellectual, language and communication, but most of all disorder, have risen in defining and recognising an autistic person. Autistic identities are diverse, like a collage of all the ways autistic people are seen, a collage of definition, portrayal and experience. So we see an autistic person and their label and images of other similarly labelled people. But hopefully we do see the person before the label. Any one person's identity is continuously evolving and hard to capture as a still image. Viewing people through a time-bound snapshot of autism misses so much of their individual identity, the vehicle within the traffic. The label misses much of the whole person hidden behind the label. Autism has been many things, and autism is continuously created and recreated. How does the place we live in change the way we see? And how does the language used where we live change the way we see ourselves and each other? We don't see the world as it is, but through a filter of perception, selecting the elements that attract or intrude on our attention. Newspaper stories about autism that mention the province of Leinster are more likely to mention government and services for children. News in Connaught links autism with medical research, genetics, and a trusting anticipation of future treatments. The language of news in Ulster is more often angry and fearful, and more likely to echo the language of NHS provisions. While each news story may have an imperceptible impact, every story leaves a trace on the perception of autism and autistic people. Watching a pedestrian crossing, we see people, bicycles and vehicles, and over time a signalled pattern of pedestrians crossing, traffic passing, and the perceptions of each individual event combine into a pattern of the timing of the lights, the flow of a city. We can collect these minute perceptions, here with a slit scan camera, into an image of more or less memorable events. News in Munster is marked by community action and activism, from Janie Sinnott's demand for his right to an education to school provision for everyone now. All those stories leave a mark, like a journey being memorable for the striking events or repetition or pattern. Each person crossing the road at Singer's Corner leaves an individual trace and also contributes to an image of flow, a pattern of the people in the city, a flow that can be visualized as heat, the places and paths that people choose to inhabit, their desire lines, and the image of people as they are, a people as they choose to move, rarely fits inside the box. A parade passes, a diverse crowd of people, led by the message, "This is me." And within the trace left by that crowd, that 1.6 kilometres of humanity, each individual has left their own individual and unique trace. I would like the news not to be about autism, but stories made by autistic people. The words we use to talk about autism are strongly connected with other words with which they commonly occur in writing and speech, like the grooves left by pilgrims, marking and reinforcing the same action over and over. Once those patterns are laid down, it's hard to escape them, to write outside the groove. Grooves might reflect adherence to an accepted standard, like wagon wheels, or the natural resistance of the material in which they're written. Autism is a noun and a subject in its own right, easily fitting into of, for, and autism, or suffering from autism. Autistic, in contrast, is an adjective and demands to be followed by a human subject, child, boy, man, or son, but less often a girl, woman, or daughter. In the cave paintings of Chauvet, our ancestors seem to have overlaid multiple images like a story without time. Watching live animals, perhaps we can see how they chose to define and inscribe not a single fixed image of the subject, but a story, like a snail grazing on the accumulated moss and lichen, leaving a timeless record of its journey and nighttime feeding, or the memories and lichen laid on a stone, or the story of people who stepped over a threshold. Lucas Cranach, like Chauvet's artists, placed a whole story, from creation to leaving Eden, in a timeless frame. The Book of Akbar portrays a hunt from preparation through ambush to chaotic end within a single timeless frame. When we watch a real organism in nature with its fluidity and complexity, its range of motion and expression, how do we turn our perceptions into a concept, into an image, into one word? Seeing a beautiful landscape of textures and hues, or just decaying paint, is a matter of perspective. How we look at nature, prioritize our gaze, and name concepts doesn't just reflect what we see. Naming what we see changes what we see. When we pick the words we use about autism, we change autism.